Welcome to Alleyboyz News. Before we get into the Nolan Wells case, we need to say something. We honestly didn't want to cover this story. And it's not for the reason you might think. We're tired of every tragedy becoming another racial battle before all the facts are even known. Although we understand America's history and why some people feel race may have played a part in this case. But with this happening so soon after the Carmelo Anthony verdict and all the racial tension that surrounded it, we're just tired of the division. But without further ado, let's get started.
What happened to Nolan Wells? The questions, the timeline, the truth. Before we get into the investigation, let's first answer one question. Who was Nolan Wells?
His name was Nolan Wells. He was just 18 years old. Nolan had recently graduated from Ocean Springs High School. He was a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. His dean called him exemplary, a student, an athlete, a friend. His college football team publicly asked for prayers. The moment his disappearance made the news.
Now that we know who Nolan Wells was, and let's walk through the timeline and examine what happened leading up to his disappearance.
What do authorities know about the disappearance and death of college wide receiver Nolan Wells? Here's what you need to know. A 4th of July boating trip turned tragic in Mississippi after college student Nolan Xavier Wells went missing on Horn Island. According to authorities, Wells and a group of friends took a boat out to the island, a popular spot about 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, to celebrate the 4th. Though it isn't clear if anything transpired on the island, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office said Wells was last seen around 3 p.m., talking to a girl at the north end of the island. According to Ebony magazine, the girl's mother reportedly took to Facebook to confirm that her daughter had been with Wells, but that she didn't have any information on his sudden disappearance. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter told ABC News that Wells's friends eventually left the island to go back home without him, telling the outlet that Wells supposedly chose to stay on the Oasis. But as it got dark and there was no sign of Wells, the 18-year-old's mother called to report him missing at around midnight, according to WLOX. The next day, the Coast Guard and Sheriff's Office jumped into action to try and find Wells. At least several other agencies also joined in the search, but authorities were coming up empty. On July 6, authorities got a break in the case. A U.S. Park Service ranger had recovered a body off the northwestern tip of the island. The coroner told WLOX that he had, quote, no reason to believe it wasn't him. The outlet later reported that his body was positively identified through dental records. But what led to Wells's untimely death is still a mystery, and Wells's family is demanding answers. Wells's cause of death has not yet been determined and could take weeks pending autopsy results. However, authorities told ABC News he's suspected of drowning as the investigation remains ongoing. Ledbetter told ABC News that foul play is not suspected in Wells's death. However, TMZ reported that law enforcement was looking into a viral clip circulating online, which allegedly shows several people having an argument near the Horn Island shoreline. However, authorities have not confirmed that the footage is authentic or whether the people seen in it have any connection to the college student.
So now, let's focus on the point in the timeline where the young woman enters the story.
According to reports, the young woman who was last seen with Xavier Nolan Wells is Katie McCormick. Now, Katie McCormick has since started to cooperate with the police and has lawyered up. But something is not making sense and the math is not mathing yet again. Reports are saying that according to Katie McCormick's family, she was with Nolan that day, but she left him before his disappearance, and she assumed, and it was to her knowledge, that he had made it back safely.
After learning about the mystery girl, the story took another emotional turn. Nolan's father went to retrieve his son's belongings. Once Nolan's father arrived, he asked the young man if he could have Nolan's keys. But according to Nolan's father, what happened next immediately caught his attention.
The person with the key. When we got to the house, a few of his friends, they were already there. And they were at the door in the house, asking questions. So when I walked up, they were getting, things were getting kind of tense. So I turned to them and told them, I need you guys to calm down. I don't do this to me right now. I need them to kind of trust me so they can give me something. So I was able to calm them down. So the guy, he's in one of the pictures. He came out of the room, half asleep or whatever, I think Jax or whatever. And I said, look, I'm Nolan's father. I'm here to get his keys so I can get his car. I said, he's like, his car's in New York. His car's parked in New York. So he was like, I don't know, man. I know it's like my brother. I said, well, if Nolan was like your brother, would you please go in your room and see if we can find my son's keys so I can take his car home? He walks off, 2 or 3 minutes, come back. I can't find the keys. I said, okay. So at that point, I get the boys and I get to move them out the house because I didn't want them to go into the house and start tearing up these people's houses because they'd never be all in the situation. So we walk outside by the car. One of the guys that was in the house with us, he was on the phone with a girl, and the girl told him that Nolan's keys were on top of this Jax guy's Xbox in the house because apparently she was there with him earlier. So he goes back up to the door by himself, and 5 minutes later, the keys come out. So now I feel like you done lied to me. So now I'm really like in distrust with you.
As more of the story began to come out, things started looking a little strange. One question that immediately stood out was why investigators reportedly used Nolan's dental records to identify his body.
I'm going to talk about Nolan Wells today.
So today, we actually know someone that works transporting bodies, human remains, and things like that. So today I got a call from that person, and they were just talking about the body that they
came across. This was Nolan Wells.
So before knowing all that, he said that the body was mistreated.
Yeah.
It looked abused. It looked like he was tortured. Looked as if he was burnt, maybe.
Where?
Face, body, said he was burnt.
And not only that, his body was mistreated when they transported him.
So as they were transporting him, he was actually face down. So everyone knows when you're transporting a body, when, only a couple of people work that job, they all know you don't transport the body face down. That's kind of very disrespectful. So you always have them face up.
Now, we don't currently know if these stories are true, but as investigators, we have to at least consider every account that's coming out until the facts separate themselves. What we do know is that one of the young men's mothers is a judge. She later made a post on social media. Here's what she had to say.
Judge Ashley Cole has released a statement on behalf of her family and her stepson Warren. I'm not going to read it all, you guys can pause. Basically, she said that Nolan was a good friend of the family, went to school with Nolan's mother, Christine. She also said she told everybody to go private on their account for the very simple reason that she has younger children and she did not want to subject him to social media and all of the harassment and bullying that was going to come with Nolan's unaliving. She said her and her husband were not at Horn Island on the 4th and that none of them are trying to impede on the investigation. That Warren was interviewed at Jackson County Sheriff's Department and cooperated fully. He saw Nolan last at 3 p.m. on July 4th. They left around 4:30 when the boat was taking on water and they had issues with the pump. She said Nolan made the decision to stay on the island and return inland later with another group of friends. Now, the guy to the far left of the screen, that is Warren. On top of that, Warren's mother made a statement. She basically said the same thing. We're all distraught. We're all hurt. That people's information is not right. Another boy by the name Wyatt asked Nolan to get on the boat several times, but Nolan said he wanted to stay behind with Katie. She said Warren doesn't even own a boat. Once again, the boat was taking on water and it had to be towed to shore. She also said her son had nothing to do with it and he was the first one to notice that Nolan was missing when they got back to the house. They called his mother and the Coast Guard. The only thing that confuses me about this, Katie told her mother, and I quote, Katie assumed that the friends telling him to get on the boat wouldn't leave him. Warren's mother said Nolan wanted to stay with Katie. So who's the last one to actually be with Nolan? If Katie didn't stay, his friends didn't stay. Was he left there on the island by himself? I'm just raising questions.
We also know Nolan's family has hired civil rights attorney Ben Crump. In one of his latest interviews, the family's attorney gave an update on the case. Here's what he had to say.
I had an opportunity to meet with District Attorney Angel McAgrath and some members of her team. We had a very respectful meeting. The thing I assume some of you may know, the thing to announce, she shared with the family that there will be a grand jury that she will turn this case over to once they have collected all the information and finished their investigation. We also agreed that we will have a mutual inspection of the cell phone with our experts and their experts Attorney Eric Hertz is helping lead the investigation team with former law enforcement experts who are going to help us with the cell phone download. So everybody will be able to see at the same time what the cell phone has.
We're keeping a close eye on this case, and we'll continue bringing you updates as new information becomes available. Thank you all for tuning in. This is Alleyboyz News.